Boleskine House is a cursed place, steeped in mystery and magic. Sitting far up in the Scottish Highlands, 34 kilometers south of Inverness and located on the southeast side of Loch Ness. Its surroundings couldn't be more fitting. In fact, its grounds bear a bloody history that is equally as elusive as its ties to the occult. In the 13th century, a kirk, a Scottish name for a church, and a graveyard sat on the property. On one ill-fated night, the congregation was locked inside the kirk and it was set on fire. Everyone inside died as the kirk burnt to the ground. In the 17th century, a dark wizard raised the dead in the graveyard beside Boleskine House, and local minister Thomas Houston was tasked with laying the animated corpses back to rest. In 1760, Colonel Archibald Fraser first built Boleskine House as a hunting lodge on the site of the kirk ruins. It was then expanded later by the Fraser family into a permanent residence. Boleskine House was held in the Frasers' possession until it was purchased by Aleister Crowley in 1899. Aleister Crowley was a British occultist, philosopher, ceremonial magician, poet, painter, novelist, and mountaineer. He was born in Warwickshire, England, into a wealthy evangelical Christian family who owned a profitable brewing business called Crowley's Alton Ales. Crowley despised his strict Christian upbringing and was in search of something more radical, liberal, and metaphysical. In his early 20s, he attended Trinity College at Cambridge to study English literature. There he met young, renowned poet W.B. Yeats and other future members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, a Freemasonic secret society that he would later become a part of. After a mountaineering expedition in the Himalayas, Crowley gained notoriety for his controversial writings, hedonistic lifestyle, and associations with occult groups. He publicly referred to himself as the Great Beast 666 and adopted a persona that challenged traditional moral and religious values. He also proclaimed himself as the prophet entrusted with guiding humanity into the Ion of Horus. In 1904, Crowley founded his religion, Thelema, after coming into contact with a spiritual entity named Aiwass, who also inspired his most famous book, the Book of the Law. Thelema shares similarities with the Golden Dawn in that they both draw upon aspects of Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and ceremonial magic. But why did he buy Boleskine House? Crowley specifically bought the house to perform the elaborate rituals contained in the 14th century grimoire, the Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage, which had been recently translated from a 15th century French manuscript into English by his Grand Master, Samuel MacGregor Mathers, who was the leader of the Golden Dawn.
A magical house is as hard to find as a magical book is to publish. I scoured the country in vain. Not till the end of August 1899 did I find an estate which suited me. This was the manor of Boleskine in Abertarf, on the southeast side of Loch Ness, halfway between Inverferrigeg and Foyers. By paying twice as much as it was worth, I got it, gave up my flat, and settled down at once to get everything in order for the great operation, which one is told is to begin at Easter.
The Book of the Sacred Magic of Abramelin the Mage describes specific parameters of the house where its spells are to be performed. Number 1, a place secluded with minimal contact with neighbors and outside world. Number 2, a square-shaped prayer room that has one east and one west-facing window with an altar in the middle of it. This room should have an area surrounding where spirits can be summoned and communed with. Crowley, in fact, placed sand on the ground during this outside area at Boleskine House so he could see the footprints of the spirits he summoned. Number 3. The magician must finish the work in the same place where it was started. He or she must live in that same place for 18 months. The magical workings ultimately consist of receiving knowledge and communing with one's holy guardian angel, and in summoning the 4 princes of hell, their 8 sub-princes, and both of their legions of sub-spirits. The magician is put through numerous tests of temptation, trickery, and cunning by the princes of hell and their legions, with the end goal being for him or her to subdue them so that he or she can be their master, setting them forth upon the world to achieve his or her will. The successful execution of certain spells, some such as invisibility, clairvoyance, and raising the dead, are outlined in the 3rd section of the grimoire as well. Having just joined the Golden Dawn in 1898, it is easy to imagine that Crowley was eager to impress his Grand Master Mathers, perhaps too eager. In the middle of performing the Abramelin rites, he was called by Mathers to assist him in Paris on an urgent matter. After months of meticulously carrying out purifications, prayers, diet modifications, and studies to prepare for the complex ritual, and having already summoned demons and spirits, Crowley abandoned Boleskine House, ironically, to serve his own master. Performing a magical ritual and summoning spirits without banishing them can be detrimental. Without properly banishing them, they will often stick around and cause mischief. It's like inviting a bunch of stray cats into your house without letting them out. Before you know it, they've taken over. Certain dark entities are malevolent tricksters and sometimes demonic. They can form attachments to people and possess them. The magical rites in the Book of Abramelin are supposed to last 18 months. Crowley left after only 6, in the middle of one of the most powerful magical rituals currently known. Several tragedies ensued. One of his estate employees attempted to kill his wife and children. The 2 children of his lodge keeper, Hugh Gilly, suddenly died under mysterious circumstances. A local butcher cut off his own hand while dealing with Crowley's order, which he wrote down on a piece of paper during the Abramelin ritual. In 1960, Major Edward Grant, one of the subsequent owners of Boleskine House, killed himself with a shotgun in the bedroom where Crowley performed many of his black magic rituals. During and after the Abramelin ritual, locals of the foyer area claim that they would go out of their way to avoid the house due to its bad vibes and dark clouds that always seem to hang over it. During this time, the Golden Dawn refused to initiate Crowley into their second order. His bisexuality, libertine lifestyle, and feuds with certain members were grating on them. This happened around the time he visited Mathers in Paris. On returning to London, Crowley and Mathers tried to gain control over the Golden Dawn's lodge, which led to a court case that they lost and led to further infighting and animosity towards them both. In July 1918, Crowley sold Boleskine due to financial hardship. It passed through a series of owners before being purchased by Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page. Page was a long-time admirer of Crowley and had a strong interest in the occult. After purchasing the property, Page went to work restoring the house in exactly the way it would have looked when Crowley lived there.
The infamous Boleskine House. He himself left a number of his spirits that he raised, sort of knocking around the place when he left here. here. I think most of those are sort of finally pushed off now. One of the most interesting ghosts, or whatever you want to call it, that inhabit the place is one of a chap called Simon Lord Lovat, who was chief of the Fraser clan at the time of the Jacobite rebellion, or whenever it was. The Battle of Culloden, anyway, which most people will have heard about. He was finally beheaded for treason in London, the Tower of London. And his head, at the time of his execution, was supposed to have fallen into a basket. And in fact didn't. It rolled off across the floor. And the story goes that at the time of his death, that he was thinking of himself in the heart of the Highlands, which we are just about in the geographical dead center of the Highlands, right here. And his head still rolls up and down the corridor outside this room here. And can be heard at night. I've heard it myself several times.
Page entrusted one of his old school friends, Malcolm Dent, to look after Boleskine while he was away touring and doing musician activities, which was quite often. In fact, throughout his ownership, Page barely spent any time there. Dent, who was a skeptic of the paranormal, experienced many strange happenings in the house.
Probably one of the first episodes that made the biggest impression on me was sitting in bed or half lying in bed, and something outside the door of my bedroom was snuffling under the door, which it started off as if it was a dog and then became very much more powerful as a sound and as a noise and as an impression, to the extent that I snapped on a light beside the bed and was, well, I have to confess, very, very frightened, because it became extremely noisy and as if the door was going to come through. But I had a feeling as to what the creature was, and it was huge and very, very evil. And I was very, very frightened. Crowley, when he was raising the various demons and spirits at Boleskine, failed to banish all of them back from whence they came, and that one or two residues had been left behind. And he actually mentions that he had left this one bricked up, in, as he put it, in the center of Boleskine House. The room I was in that night was the center of Boleskine House.
Boleskine was also featured in a documentary about Led Zeppelin called The Song Remains the Same. It follows the band on their 1973 US tour and is rife with occult symbolism. In one scene, Page's eyes glow devil red, cutting to a shot of dense forest and moonlight, with the guitarist climbing to a mountaintop where he meets a hooded creature holding a lantern who resembles the Hermit tarot card. Page finally sold Boleskine in 1991. Since his ownership, there have been 2 fires at the residence. A fire broke out on December 23, 2015 and destroyed the roof. Authorities attributed it to an electrical fault, but weren't 100% sure of the cause. The second one took place on July 31st, 2019. It took firefighters 7 hours to control the blaze, but thankfully, no one was hurt. They concluded that it had been set deliberately. Curiously, both fires coincided with major pagan holidays. December 23rd is the last day of the ancient pagan festival of Saturnalia, and is still celebrated by some neo-pagans today. Astrologically, December 23rd, 2015 was also one day after the winter solstice that year, which is a powerful time to perform magical rituals. The second fire broke out on July 31st, 2019, which was also an important pagan holiday in many ancient societies. This date is the astrological midpoint between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. July 31st to August 1st was celebrated as Lunasa by ancient and neo-pagan Celts, marked as a time to give thanks to the deities for the beginning of harvest season and to appease them with offerings so that they don't harm the ripening crops. If these fires were set on purpose by someone or a pagan group, was their intention for the benefit of Boleskine House and the surrounding areas? If the princes and demons of hell were summoned and a portal was opened, was setting the house on fire the only way to close off the spell and banish the spirits forever? I'm not sure. And I somehow get a feeling that we might not ever know. 7 years after the ritual, further tragedy befell Crowley. His firstborn child, Lilith, with his first wife, Rose Kelly, contracted typhoid and died while he was away traveling. Kelly developed alcoholism and was shortly after committed to a mental institution. In 1907, Mathers attempted to sue Crowley for publicly sharing Golden Dawn's secrets and his own works of literature. Such notoriety only bolstered his fame as a Satanist. In 1920, Crowley founded an abbey in Cefalù, Italy, for his disciples of Thelema. They all lived there practicing sex magic, taking drugs, and creating art. As his hedonistic lifestyle continued, Crowley developed a significant heroin problem. In 1922, one of Crowley's young disciples, Raoul Loveday, died in the same way as his daughter Lilith. He passed away from typhoid that he contracted from drinking contaminated spring water. Eventually, Mussolini's fascist regime grew suspicious of activities at the abbey. And in 1923, Crowley and his followers were evicted. The house was considered haunted by villagers and remained abandoned until 1955, when Kenneth Anger, the late American experimental filmmaker, attempted to restore the abbey, but was unsuccessful. Back in England, Crowley sued multiple book publishers in an attempt to acquire more money through litigation, but none of his friends would testify on his behalf. The legal expenses left him penniless. By 1947, Crowley himself was a heroin addict. On December 1st of that year, he passed away from bronchitis and heart congestion in the Netherwood Hotel at Hastings. His cremated remains, reportedly, were lost. The consequences of Crowley's incomplete ritual of Abramelin have lasted decades, and the effects are still being felt today. In 2021, UK paranormal investigator Carl Hassel investigated the property, or rather the ruins, on his YouTube channel, Dark Arts TV. After using a Ouija board to summon spirits in the house ruins, he experienced sudden illness, loss of relationships, and demonic infestations at his residence.
Did you just touch Natalie's neck?
I'm literally shaking, filming. What was that? What was that?
The table just went moving.
I heard it.
Just literally fucking went.
We need to wrap this up, man.
No, we need to go. No, Carl, we need to go. This is to
Come
get.
on, just. What the hell was that? That did not sound good. Why do you want us to leave so bad? In the woods.
What the fuck was that? What was that? Who did that? Oh my...
Get out!
Turn it off. Get out.
You didn't move that.
God.
No, mate. Fuck this. Get the fuck out.
Did you get that on film?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Bro, turn the fucking thing off, man.
Turn it off, Carl.
Go. You keep saying go. What the fuck? What the... You didn't touch that,
Nah, mate, I'm freaking out.
Yeah, let's just go. Let's go.
It looked like it twisted on that side. Like it was being pulled from that corridor there.
Let's just go. Please.
I fell ill. I couldn't leave my house for weeks.
as I didn't feel mentally strong enough to cope. My family would become sick whenever I was around them. My relationships with friends began to break, and I couldn't understand what was happening or what I was thinking, what was wrong with me. So I became obsessed with finding out what was really happening. I deleted this project over 3 times and started to re-edit, as I needed to show the world and prove to myself and everyone else it was something more sinister that was destroying everything in my path, everything in my life.
Hassel goes on to document paranormal activities and disembodied voices that manifested in his house on returning from Boleskine. I highly recommend watching it. There's a link in the description box below. During my research of this episode, I experienced my own connection to Boleskine. At the time, I received my ancestry DNA results and was building up my family tree. It went back centuries and centuries. And I noticed the surname Fraser kept popping up. And then Lord Lovett, multiple Lord Lovett, from Inverness County, where Boleskine is located. It definitely felt like a synchronicity. And whether it's true or not, it made me laugh, thinking that my potential ancestor's decapitated head is rolling around the floor of Boleskine, scaring the shit out of people. If you'd like to visit Boleskine House, it was recently restored by a group of investors called the Boleskine House Foundation. You can book a visit by clicking the link below. If you like this episode, please like, share, and subscribe. It really helps grow the channel. Have a great day, sincerely, and thank you for watching.